I have a problem, and it is one of a debate. Tokyo Ghoul versus Choujin X. Which one is better? Which one do I like more? I have 9 categories: story, characters, powers, artwork, pacing, whimsy, themes and such, ideas and enjoyment. By the end of this video, all of them will have one answer, and overall, there will be a winner. There's a bit of an unequal advantage though. TG is 7 years old and completed. It ran from 2011 to 2018. Choujin X is still ongoing and only has been running for 5 years. So take that into consideration. A big thank you to Mignatone and Mel for supporting me on Patreon. I love you both. If you'd like to support me directly, become a YouTube member. It's only a $5 and your name will be featured here. I greatly appreciate it. The story. Both Choujin X and TG are fantastic stories. They really have that Sui Ishida grime and grit and element. You know what I mean? His style and authenticity on the page. If you've read Tokyo Ghoul, if you read Tokyo Ghoul Re, if you read Choujin X, you can see all of the similarities and stylistic choices that he goes for artistically, characters, writing narratives, writing ideas and emotions, all of these different things that he manages to come up with, they all share in the same spectrum of his mind and his penmanship. And you can see it very effortlessly. They're not copycats, however. They're always iterations or evolutions or different versions of different ideas that all seemingly overlap in the same way of presentation being his style. I love this. Sui Ishida is easily one of my favorite authors, and even with such a small body of work, his style is so identifiable, it's so noticeable, it stands out above a lot of authors within the industry, and it's really difficult to figure out which one of the stories I like better, what I think is done better. Narratively, they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and even my own personal preference on what I would enjoy being more Tokyo Ghoul aligned. Still, Choujin X manages to never escape the back of my mind. I feel like I'm constantly thinking about it, so it's only fair that the winner for story is both of them. The characters, however, is a little bit different. Both stories have a large cast of characters, but the core difference between both stories in general is one is a lot more closed in, a lot more central, a lot more tight-knit, being Tokyo Ghoul, and Choujin X is a lot more expansive. Its ideas are more continental, more warfaring, and encompasses a lot more people and identities and cultures. Thus, you don't really get the tight-knit nature for those characters sometimes. Now, of course, this isn't technically a bad thing, this comes down to personal preference. I think TG, because of its narrative and how it's being told, has a much easier time and a much more accessible time to tell different characters' stories and perspectives and identities, and to really build up their relationships in a beautiful, thought-provoking, emotionally fulfilled way. Choujin X struggles in that department because the story becomes so highly conceptual, it's not as close-knit, and it's dealing with a lot of different things with characters that are a little bit too far out of each other's reach. And that's not to say that it isn't impressive with what it's doing, but more so it's focusing its elements elsewhere. So for characters, the clear winner here for me is Tokyo Ghoul. And let's be honest, Kaneki himself is genuinely iconic. The power system, also very iconic. I always love the way Ishida writes and thinks about his power system. It's very inspiring for my own works when it comes to building power systems. I'm always interested. I'm not someone that likes to power scale in general. I'll leave that to the professionals, but I do love how the powers intertwine with the person using it, how it evolves over time, how it's shown, how unique it can be, how gruesome and gross it can evolve to be, and how it interacts with others. An easy through line that Ishida does with TG and Choujin X is that a lot of his powers are based in the realm of science. There is some sort of scientific, biological explanation to how his powers work. At least that's the framework that he usually provides himself. And there's a uniqueness to it, but it allows the exploration of the origin of his powers to be still mystified, where you're curious on where it comes from, but now you can kind of give yourself direction in terms of theory crafting. It's not this big anonymous idea, instead it's kind of going down a path that is a little bit more guided now. Choujin X on the power front is like high tier conceptual, where it's like at its base, it's superpowers, right? But the strength of the power system comes in the imagination of the author. If people can have certain powers, what type of cool powers do you give them that's interesting? Tokyo Ghoul, however, is different, where its power system is more so bred through the traumatizing and emotional aspects of its character. But then there's also just the visual identity and kind of flair that TG has. Don't get me wrong, Choujin X is drawn beautifully and it does have a similar trauma identity aspect to its power system, but TG is more, I would say, homogenized with its trauma adjacent, because a lot of its characters are trauma driven. The world is very dark and bleak. It makes sense for a power like this to incubate in a lot of people that are suffering or struggling or going through a lot of horrible things, and how that power advances over time. Choujin X unfortunately doesn't really have that flair, but again, it doesn't really have to. So for powers, I'm giving that to TG. The artwork. This is a pretty simple answer. As much as I love TG's aesthetic, its vibe, it's also the time where Ishida was still learning and evolving. You can see him kind of change his art style from Tokyo Ghoul to Tokyo Ghoul Re, and he's drawn easily some of the most iconic, impressive pieces of work in the Tokyo Ghoul franchise. It is beautiful to see how much he's done and how much his style has evolved along that journey. However, Choujin X is his magnum opus artistically. It's pretty much everything that he has ever learned and stuff that he's still currently learning, and just applying it in a way that he sees fit. He gets to experiment, he gets to be creative, he gets to draw so many different things in so many different ways, and you get to see so many different styles come out to play. So I have to give this to Choujin X. I feel like all of his experience has led him here. The pacing, this is kind of a difficult one, because I was thinking about Tokyo Ghoul in terms of overall pacing, but not its weekly pacing, because TG Weekly I think was perfect. Like, it was such a phenomenal read every single week, and arguably some of the fondest memories I have for a weekly reading story. I don't think anything has really ever competed with it since. However, when I think of pacing, I think more so narratively, like if I'm going through and reading it, how are the characters paced? How are the arcs structured and paced? Does it read well? Does it flow together well? And Tokyo Ghoul has that. It's just Choujin X is paced better. The reason it's paced better is because it's not a weekly. It is released whenever Ishida wants to release it. He structured the story entirely in a way where you read things kind of in full every single time, and then he has like these mini arcs that are point chapters that are basically one whole chapter. It's how you view it. So point 1, point 2, point 3. He has nailed it on the head on how to release his story the way that he wants to, providing even more material than weekly stories in a shorter amount of time, while also being able to structure it in a way that reads beautifully between volumes while also in full. That is a very difficult thing to grasp. Choujin X takes pacing. The whimsy category. We love this category because we love whimsy. Tokyo Ghoul unfortunately doesn't have much whimsy. It's kind of just very depressing. It has its moments to shine, however, don't get me wrong, but it kind of just gets outpaced by Choujin X quite a lot. Choujin X has way more room to implement whimsy, especially with a lot of its characters being whimsical, so there's no real argument here in terms of who could it be. It's Choujin X. It just has way more volume and way more range to play upon within the whimsy category without completely breaking and isolating its story into something that isn't. Themes and such is an interesting category because it really comes down to your own interpretation of the story and its themes, obviously, and how much value you put into them. There's the idea of like execution and believability and if it works and doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Like, sure, you can say that's objective or factuality, blah, blah, blah. But reality wise, right? What you think is more in tune with yourself, what you enjoy to read in terms of themes, how you feel like they're executed, and how important they are to the overall story or its characters is entirely dependent on you. Themes are incredibly interpretive. They're constantly changing. The more value you give it, someone else might give it 2 times more that value. They might care about it more. They might care about it less. So for that case, I have to give themes to TG. For me, it fits all of the personal notes I love to see in story writing when it comes to Kaneki as a character, when it comes to his trauma, when it comes to the thematic presence and profile that he puts throughout the entire narrative. It is so consistent, it is so well thought out, it's so beautifully told, it's suffocating, it's addicting, pretty much everything that you would want for Kaneki, for other characters, for the world in general. There's so many nuggets to chew on, so many interesting loopholes and ideas and theories that you can build. It is absolutely incredibly dense. So TG is the winner. Ideas is also personal preference. I put this down to Choujin X. I think there's more ideas, there's more creative ideas, there's more ideas that I enjoy and love, but there's also more ideas that I feel like I dislike in Choujin X. Tokyo Ghoul has some fantastic ideas, but I just think Choujin X has so much more range and volume and room to play around with different ideas that it's hard to kind of keep up with it. TG just does not do it for me in terms of ideas compared to Choujin X currently. Last but not least, enjoyment. I love both of these stories very much equally. I love reading Choujin X every single chapter it drops. I loved reading TG throughout its entire run. It would be impossible for me to say the clear winner here for an enjoyment isn't TG. If I said that, I feel like I'd be lying to myself, because not only did TG kind of kickstart my YouTube career, started talking about it on videos and is the reason why I'm here today, but the weekly reading experience for TG was unmatched. If you had a chance, if you were lucky enough to be around all those years ago to experience Tokyo Ghoul or Tokyo Ghoul Re-weekly, you were in for a treat. Ever since then, nothing on a weekly scale has gotten close to TG for me. Emotionally, thematically, story-wise, character-wise, power-wise, artistically, like just everything kind of coalesced so beautifully into that weekly read. It was ridiculous. It's the reason that I'm here today still doing things. It continues to inspire me, so my enjoyment overall has to go to Tokyo Ghoul. That leaves us with the final winner, who comes out on top. And funny enough, I didn't realize doing this that between all 9 categories were split equally. For what these stories mean to me, the winner would be Tokyo Ghoul, but by a very, very small amount. Or if I wasn't a YouTuber, my answer probably would be Choujin X. But because I owe so much of my career, so much incredible memories and journeys and styles and even writing in general to Sui Ishida and Tokyo Ghoul with where he started, it only feels right that the winner between them is Tokyo Ghoul. Thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Thank you to everybody on Patreon. I appreciate you immensely. If you're a member here on YouTube, thank you very much as well. I love you. Mwah.